The deafening crash of waves against wood jolted Gregory awake. Salt water stung his eyes as he desperately clung to what remained of his small fishing boat. The peaceful morning voyage had turned into a nightmare when an unexpected storm swept through, capsizing his vessel and leaving him stranded in the vast Pacific Ocean. Hours passed as Gregory drifted, his strength waning with each passing wave. The sun beat down mercilessly, and his throat burned with thirst. His thoughts turned to his wife, Madeline, and their young daughter, Emma. Would he ever see them again? The possibility that he wouldn't haunted him more than the sharks he knew lurked beneath the surface. As darkness approached, exhaustion began to overcome him. His muscles screamed in protest as he maintained his grip on the floating debris. The coastline had long since disappeared from view, and with it, any hope of quick rescue. Gregory knew the odds of survival decreased with each passing hour. Just when despair threatened to overwhelm him, something brushed against his leg. His heart nearly stopped. Was this how it would end? Instead of the dreaded shark attack, he felt another gentle nudge. Through the crystal-clear water, he saw the sleek grey form of a dolphin circling beneath him. The intelligent creature surfaced nearby, clicking and whistling. Gregory had heard stories of dolphins helping swimmers in distress, but he'd always dismissed them as tall tales. Now, as the dolphin positioned itself beside him, he wondered if there was truth to those legends after all. "Hey there," he whispered hoarsely, his voice barely audible over the waves. The dolphin responded with more clicks, swimming closer. To Gregory's astonishment, it began gently pushing against him, nudging him in a specific direction. Initially hesitant, Gregory realized he had nothing to lose. The dolphin's presence had already given him renewed hope. Perhaps it sensed something he couldn't. With the last of his strength, he allowed the creature to guide him. As night fell and the stars emerged above, the dolphin remained steadfast beside him. Whenever Gregory's energy flagged, the creature would emit encouraging sounds, as if urging him to hold on. Through the long hours of darkness, man and dolphin moved slowly but steadily through the vast ocean. What Gregory didn't know was that back on shore, Madeline had already raised the alarm. His failure to return had sparked a massive search effort. Coast Guard vessels scoured the waters, but the vast search area and deteriorating weather conditions complicated their efforts. Dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Gregory's muscles had long since gone numb, and his mind wandered in and out of consciousness. The dolphin remained, its presence a constant reminder that he wasn't alone in the endless blue expanse. Suddenly, the dolphin's behavior changed. Its clicks became more excited, more urgent. Gregory forced his eyes open, squinting against the morning sun. There, in the distance, he saw something that made his heart leap, the distinctive outline of a fishing boat. The dolphin's chattering increased as it began swimming in circles around Gregory, creating splashes that caught the attention of the vessel's crew. As the boat drew closer, Gregory heard shouts of surprise and relief. The dolphin had led him directly into the path of potential rescuers. As hands reached down to pull him from the water, Gregory caught one last glimpse of his marine savior. The dolphin leaped gracefully from the waves, as if celebrating his rescue, before disappearing beneath the surface. Gregory collapsed on the deck, overwhelmed by exhaustion and gratitude. The fishing boat's crew immediately radioed the Coast Guard, and within hours, Gregory was reunited with his distraught family. Medical examination revealed he was severely dehydrated and exhausted, but otherwise unharmed, a miracle considering his ordeal. News of his rescue spread quickly through the coastal community, but Gregory noticed something strange. Since that day, whenever he visited the beach where he usually launched his boat, he would see a familiar dorsal fin in the distance, as if his guardian angel was still watching over him. The experience changed Gregory profoundly. His brush with death and the unexpected alliance with one of nature's most intelligent creatures gave him a new perspective on life. But this was just the beginning of an extraordinary series of events that would unfold in the days to come. Gregory's return home should have been the end of his remarkable story, but fate had other plans. While recovering in the local hospital, he received an unexpected visitor, Nathan Parker, a marine biologist who had heard about his extraordinary rescue. "Your experience with the dolphin," Nathan began, settling into the chair beside Gregory's bed. It's remarkably similar to other cases I've been studying. He pulled out a worn notebook filled with detailed observations and photographs. There's something unique about the dolphins in this region. Gregory listened intently as Nathan explained his research. For years, he had documented unusual behavioral patterns among the local dolphin population. They seemed to exhibit an unprecedented level of interaction with humans, particularly those in distress. But recently, something had changed. "The dolphins are disappearing," Nathan revealed, his voice heavy with concern. "Their traditional feeding grounds are being abandoned, and we're finding disturbing signs of illness among those we can track." He hesitated before continuing, "And I believe I know why." Before Nathan could elaborate, they were interrupted by another visitor, Harold Blackwood, a representative from Coastal Developments Limited. His expensive suit and polished demeanor seemed out of place in the modest hospital room. "Mr. Gregory," he smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes, "I'm here to discuss compensation for your ordeal." Gregory was confused. "Compensation? I don't understand." "Your accident occurred in waters where our company conducts legitimate business operations. We want to ensure there are no misunderstandings about the cause of your boat's capsizing." Harold placed a thick envelope on the bedside table. "Gosh, this should help put the matter to rest." After Harold left, Nathan's expression darkened. "This is what I was trying to tell you. Coastal Developments has been dumping chemical waste in these waters for months. My research suggests it's affecting the entire marine ecosystem, including the dolphin that saved your life." Gregory pushed the envelope away, his mind racing. The storm hadn't been the only factor in his accident. He remembered an unusual current, the water looking different in certain areas. Why hasn't anyone stopped them? "They're powerful, connected," Nathan explained, "and they're careful to make their dumping look like legitimate operations. I've been gathering evidence, but I need more proof, something concrete that will force authorities to act." That night, after Nathan left, Gregory couldn't sleep. He thought about the dolphin, its intelligent eyes and unwavering determination to save him. He thought about Emma, his daughter, and the world she would inherit. The envelope of money still sat untouched on his table, feeling more like a burden than a gift. Madeline visited later, bringing homemade soup and concern in her eyes. "The doctors say you can come home tomorrow," she said, taking his hand, "but something's bothering you. I can tell." Gregory shared everything: Nathan's revelations, Harold's visit, his growing certainty that his accident had been more than bad luck. To his surprise, Madeline didn't dismiss his concerns. Instead, she revealed something that made his blood run cold. "There have been others," she said quietly. "While you were missing, I spoke with other fishing families. 3 boats have been damaged in that same area in recent months. Everyone assumed it was just bad luck or carelessness, but now—" Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. A nurse rushed in, looking concerned. "Dr. Parker's been in an accident," she announced. "He was found unconscious near the marina." Gregory tried to get out of bed, but Madeline stopped him. "You're not fully recovered," she insisted. But she could see the determination in his eyes. "At least let me help you." Together, they made their way to the emergency room where Nathan was being treated. The marine biologist was conscious, but badly shaken. "They took everything," he managed to say when he saw Gregory. "My research, my samples, all the evidence, gone." The attack on Nathan confirmed their worst fears. Coastal Developments would stop at nothing to protect their illegal operations. But they had made a crucial mistake. In their haste to silence Nathan, they hadn't realized he had already hidden copies of his most damning evidence. "There's a waterproof case," Nathan whispered, "hidden near the old lighthouse. Everything you need to expose them is there. But be careful, they're watching me now." Gregory and Madeline exchanged glances. They both knew that retrieving the evidence would be dangerous, but the alternative, allowing the destruction of their coastal waters to continue, was unthinkable. As they left the hospital that night, Gregory noticed a black car parked across the street, its engine running. Someone was indeed watching, but they had underestimated the determination of a man who owed his life to the creatures they were destroying. Back home, Gregory stood at his window, looking out at the ocean that had nearly claimed his life. The full moon cast a silver path across the water, and in the distance, he saw a familiar dorsal fin break the surface. The dolphin was still out there, still fighting for survival in increasingly hostile waters. Emma's voice broke through his thoughts. "Dad," she called from the doorway. "Are you going back to the ocean?" Gregory turned to face his daughter, seeing the worry in her young eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. There's something important I need to do. Because of the dolphin that saved you." "Not just that." Gregory knelt beside her. "Sometimes, when we see something wrong happening, we have to try to make it right, even if it's scary." Emma nodded solemnly. "Like in my storybooks, the heroes always do what's right, even when it's hard." Gregory hugged her tightly, drawing strength from her simple wisdom. He didn't feel like a hero. He was just a fisherman who had been given a second chance at life. But that chance had come with a responsibility he couldn't ignore. Later that night, Gregory and Madeline sat at their kitchen table, planning their next move. They knew that retrieving Nathan's evidence would be just the beginning. They would need help to expose coastal developments, activities, and protect themselves from retaliation. "I know some people at the local news station," Madeline offered. "And the environmental group I volunteer with has lawyers who might help." Gregory nodded, but his mind was on something else, something that had been nagging at him since his rescue. "There's more to this than just illegal dumping," he said slowly. "The way that Dolphin helped me, it was almost like it was trying to show me something." Madeline reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Then we'll figure out what it was trying to show you. Together." As they talked into the night, neither of them noticed the shadow that passed briefly across their window, nor the sound of a car quietly pulling away from their street. The stakes were about to become much higher than they imagined, and the truth they were pursuing would prove more dangerous and more important than they could possibly know. The moon continued its journey across the sky, its light reflecting off the waves where somewhere a solitary dolphin kept its vigil. The real story was just beginning. The old lighthouse stood like a silent sentinel against the pre-dawn sky. Gregory and Madeline approached cautiously, aware that they might not be alone. The morning mist provided some cover, but also made it difficult to spot potential watchers. "Nathan said it would be beneath the third rock from the lighthouse door," Madeline whispered, her breath visible in the cool air. They had left Emma with Madeline's sister, telling her they needed to help a friend. It wasn't entirely a lie, but the weight of what they were really doing pressed heavily on their consciences. As they searched for the hidden case, Gregory noticed something strange in the water below the lighthouse. Dark patches marred the surface, creating an unnatural pattern in the waves. He remembered seeing similar discoloration before his accident. "Madeline," he called softly, "look at this." But before she could join him, a beam of light cut through the mist. Someone was coming. They quickly ducked behind a rocky outcropping, hearts pounding. Two figures emerged from the fog, carrying industrial equipment. Even in the dim light, Gregory recognized Harold Blackwood's expensive suit. The other man was unfamiliar, but his protective gear suggested he worked with chemicals. "Make sure it's all released before sunrise," Harold was saying. "The currents will disperse it before anyone notices. And check that section where Parker was taking samples. We can't risk leaving any traces." Gregory felt Madeline's hand tighten on his arm. They were witnessing the crime in progress, but without Nathan's evidence, it would be their word against a powerful corporation. The two men disappeared around the other side of the lighthouse. Gregory and Madeline used the opportunity to continue their search. Finally, Madeline's hand found what they were looking for, a waterproof case wedged deep beneath the rocks. Just as they retrieved it, a voice rang out, "Hey, stop right there!" They ran, the case clutched tightly in Madeline's arms. Behind them, they could hear pursuit and angry shouts. The mist that had hidden their approach now worked against them, making it difficult to see where they were going. Suddenly, the ground disappeared beneath their feet. They had reached the cliff edge. Below them, waves crashed against the rocks. They were trapped. Nowhere to go. Harold's voice came from behind them. He emerged from the mist, the other man beside him. "Hand over the case, and we can pretend this never happened. I can make it worth your while. Much more than what was in that envelope." Gregory stepped forward, placing himself between Madeline and the men. "How many other accidents have you caused?" How many lives have you put at risk? Harold's expression hardened. We're creating jobs, developing the coast. Progress always has a price. Don't try to play hero, Gregory. You're just a fisherman who got lucky once. He's more than that, Madeline spoke up, her voice strong despite her fear. He's someone who knows right from wrong, and so am I. Before anyone could react, she turned and threw the case as far as she could toward the water. Harold rushed forward, but Gregory was ready. He tackled the man, sending them both rolling dangerously close to the edge. The other man grabbed Madeline, but she fought back with unexpected ferocity. In the struggle, no one noticed the splashing in the water below, no one except Gregory. A familiar dorsal fin cut through the waves where the case had landed. Then another appeared, and another. A pod of dolphins had gathered, their clicks and whistles carrying up to the cliff. "Look!" Madeline cried out, pointing to the water. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The dolphins began creating a spectacular display, leaping and splashing in a way that caught the attention of a passing Coast Guard vessel. The patrol boat, which had been checking the waters after reports of suspicious activity, turned toward the commotion. Harold saw the approaching boat and backed away from the edge. "This isn't over," he snarled, before turning to flee with his companion. Gregory and Madeline watched as the Coast Guard boat drew closer. In the water, the dolphins continued their display, almost as if they were celebrating. The case floated nearby, its watertight seal protecting the precious evidence within. Did they come to help us?" Madeline asked in wonder. Gregory thought about his rescue, about the dolphin that had guided him to safety. "They're more intelligent than we give them credit for," he said, "and they know when their home is being threatened." The Coast Guard retrieval of the case marked a turning point, but Gregory and Madeline knew their fight was far from over. The evidence would need to be protected, verified, and presented to the right authorities. Harold and coastal developments wouldn't give up easily. As they made their way back home, exhausted but relieved, Gregory spotted a familiar dolphin swimming parallel to the shore. It was the same one that had saved him, he was sure of it. The creature leaped once, water sparkling around it in the rising sun, before disappearing beneath the waves. "We owe them so much," Madeline said softly, taking Gregory's hand. "Yes," he agreed, "and we're going to make sure their home stays safe." Back at their house, they found Emma awake and excited to see them. "Did you help your friend?" she asked innocently. Gregory picked her up, holding her close. "We did, sweetheart, and we made some very special friends too." That evening, as news began to spread about a major investigation into coastal developments, Gregory stood at his window again. The ocean stretched out before him, its surface now unmarred by chemical dumping, but he knew the real test was still to come. In his hand, he held a small piece of coral he'd found on the beach that morning. It was bleached and lifeless, a stark reminder of what they were fighting to prevent. The evidence they'd recovered would help, but there was still so much at stake. Madeline joined him at the window, wrapping her arms around him. "Hey, what are you thinking about?" "About how everything's connected," he replied. "One act of kindness from a creature many consider beneath us led to all this. Makes you wonder what else we've been missing." As night fell, they could hear the distant sound of dolphins calling to each other across the waves. It was a sound of hope, of resilience, and of the unbreakable bonds between all living things, bonds that no amount of corporate greed could sever. But in the shadows of their triumph lurked new dangers. Harold's threat echoed in Gregory's mind. This isn't over. And somehow, Gregory knew that the most challenging part of their journey was yet to come. The local newspaper office buzzed with activity as Jenny Martinez, a seasoned environmental reporter, examined the contents of Nathan's waterproof case. Spread across her desk were photographs, water sample reports, and detailed notes documenting years of systematic pollution. "This is incredible," she muttered, looking up at Gregory and Madeline. "The chemical concentrations in these samples, it's not just toxic waste. They were dumping experimental compounds, testing their effects on marine life." Gregory felt his stomach turn. "Testing? You mean they were deliberately using our waters as a laboratory?" Jenny finished. "The dolphins. Strange behavior, the fish die-offs, the coral bleaching. It wasn't just corporate negligence. They were studying the results. Madeline gripped Gregory's hand tightly. Why would they do this? Because, Nathan's voice came from the doorway, his arm still in a sling from his attack. They're developing something new, something they think will make them billions. He walked slowly into the room, still recovering from his injuries. I found references to something called Project Echo in their documentation. Before they could discuss further, Jenny's phone buzzed. Her face grew serious as she read the message. Coastal Developments just called an emergency press conference. Harold Blackwood is about to make an announcement. They gathered around Jenny's computer screen, watching the live feed. Harold stood at a podium, his usual polished appearance slightly disheveled. Recent allegations about our operations are not only false but malicious, he declared. We have always operated within environmental guidelines. In fact, our research has been aimed at protecting marine life. Gregory scoffed, but Harold wasn't finished. To prove our commitment to the environment, we're announcing a major initiative. Coastal Developments will create a marine sanctuary in these waters, protected and monitored by our own environmental team. They're trying to take control of the entire coastline, Nathan realized. If they establish their own sanctuary, they can restrict access and continue their experiments without oversight, Jenny concluded. And they'll be praised as environmental heroes while doing it. Gregory felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He remembered the dolphin that saved him, its intelligent eyes and deliberate actions. Had it known? Had it somehow understood the larger threat to its home? As they left the newspaper office, they noticed two men in dark suits watching them from across the street. The message was clear. They were being monitored, but Gregory had faced death in the ocean and survived. He wouldn't be intimidated now. That evening, at a small diner by the beach, they gathered to plan their next move. The place was run by Pete, an old fisherman who had known Gregory for years. They could trust him to warn them if any unfamiliar faces appeared. The sanctuary announcement complicates things, Jenny explained. Public opinion is already shifting in their favor. We need more than just evidence of past wrongdoing. We need to expose their real plans. Nathan nodded, wincing slightly from his injuries. Project Echo is the key, but all my research about it was stolen during the attack. Maybe not all of it, Madeline spoke up. Everyone turned to look at her. Emma's been drawing pictures lately, strange ones. When I asked her about them, she said she was drawing what the dolphins were showing her. Gregory remembered how Emma had been spending more time at the beach lately, watching the dolphins that now regularly appeared near the shore. At the time, he'd thought she was just processing everything that had happened with her father's rescue. "Show them," Madeline encouraged. She pulled out several of Emma's drawings from her bag. They showed circular patterns, wave-like formations, and what looked like sound waves. Nathan's eyes widened as he examined them. These patterns, they are similar to the echolocation diagrams I was studying, the ones that showed unusual changes in the dolphins' communication after exposure to the experimental compounds. He looked up, amazed. "Your daughter has been drawing exactly what I was researching." A chill ran down Gregory's spine. "Thus, you mean Coastal Developments is experimenting with dolphin communication?" "Not just experimenting," Nathan replied grimly. "Based on what I found, they're trying to develop a way to control it. Imagine being able to influence the behavior of marine mammals at will. The military applications alone would be worth billions." The implications were staggering. The dolphins weren't just victims of pollution. They were the unwitting subjects of a massive experiment, and somehow they had found a way to communicate what was happening to them, first by saving Gregory, and now through Emma's drawings. As they discussed what to do with this information, Pete hurried over to their table. "Two suits just pulled up outside," he warned quietly. "Look like the same ones that have been watching the beach." Through the diner's windows, they could see Harold Blackwood himself, stepping out of a black car. He straightened his tie and started walking toward the entrance. "The back door," Pete whispered. "Through the kitchen. I'll stall them." As they slipped out through the kitchen, they could hear Harold's voice. "Good evening. I'm looking for Gregory and his friends. We have some matters to discuss." They emerged into the alley behind the diner, the salt air mixing with the smell of cooking oil, but their escape route was blocked. More men in suits waited at both ends of the alley. "Now what?" Madeline whispered. Gregory looked up at the darkening sky, then toward the beach visible at the end of the street. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of gold and purple. In the distance, he saw a familiar dorsal fin break the surface. "We head for the water," he said with quiet determination. "They've helped us before. Maybe they'll help us again." As they prepared to make their move, Gregory realized that what had started as a simple rescue at sea had evolved into something far more significant. They weren't just fighting to protect the environment anymore. They were fighting to protect a form of intelligence and communication that humans were only beginning to understand. The sound of footsteps echoing in the alley told them their time was running out. Whatever they were going to do, they needed to do it now. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but possibly the fate of every dolphin in these waters. Gregory led the group through the narrow alley, moving as quietly as possible. Pete's kitchen staff, seeing their predicament, created a distraction by loudly dropping pots and pans near the front of the diner. The noise bought them precious seconds as Harold's men turned to investigate. "This way," Nathan whispered, pointing to a gap between buildings that led to the beach. Despite his injuries, he moved with renewed energy, driven by the urgency of their situation. They reached the beach just as the last rays of sunlight disappeared beneath the horizon. The ocean stretched before them, dark and mysterious. Gregory felt a familiar pull toward the water, remembering his time lost at sea. But this time, he was running toward the waves by choice. "We need to get to my boat," Jenny said, gesturing toward a small vessel moored at the nearby pier. "I use it for environmental monitoring. It's fueled and ready." Behind them, they heard voices approaching. Harold's men had discovered their escape route. Gregory turned to face Madeline, knowing what he had to do. "Take Nathan and Jenny to the boat. I'll draw them away." "No," Madeline protested. "We stay together." "Trust me," Gregory said softly, touching her cheek. "I've survived worse, remember?" He glanced meaningfully at the ocean, where several dorsal fins were now visible in the gathering darkness. Before anyone could argue further, flashlight beams cut through the dimness. Gregory broke away from the group, running along the beach in plain sight. As he'd hoped, several of Harold's men began pursuing him, shouting into their radios. Madeline, Nathan, and Jenny used the diversion to make their way toward the pier, staying low and using the docked boats as cover. Gregory led his pursuers on a winding chase, eventually circling back toward the water. His lungs burned as he ran, but years of working on fishing boats had kept him fit. He could hear his pursuers falling behind, their expensive suits and leather shoes ill-suited for a beach chase. A loud splash caught everyone's attention. In the darkness, they could see several dolphins leaping near the shore, their movements creating bioluminescent trails in the water. The display was mesmerizing, and even Harold's men paused to watch. Gregory seized the moment, diving into the surf. The cold water shocked his system, but he pushed forward, swimming strongly toward Jenny's boat. Behind him, he heard frustrated shouts as his pursuers realized they'd lost him in the dark water. As he swam, he felt a familiar presence beside him. The same dolphin that had saved him before now guided him toward the pier, its body occasionally brushing against his for reassurance. Meanwhile, Madeline, Nathan, and Jenny had reached the boat. They worked quickly to untie it, starting the engine as quietly as possible. Jenny's experience as an environmental reporter had taught her the value of maintaining her vessel in perfect condition. "Fight, there he is," Madeline whispered urgently, pointing to where Gregory was swimming toward them, the dolphin at his side. They helped him aboard, just as shouts erupted from the pier. Harold himself had arrived, and he was furious. "Start the boat," Nathan urged. Jenny complied, but as the engine roared to life, another vessel appeared, blocking their path. Harold's voice carried across the water through a megaphone. "That's far enough," he called. "You have something that belongs to me. My research, my evidence. Hand it over and we can all go home." Gregory stood at the bow of Jenny's boat, water dripping from his clothes. "It was never yours," he shouted back. "The ocean doesn't belong to you. The life in it doesn't belong to you, and the truth doesn't belong to you either." "The truth?" Harold laughed bitterly. "The truth is that progress requires sacrifice. What we're developing will change the world. Think of the possibilities. Being able to control marine life movements, protecting ships from collisions, directing fish populations to feed hungry nations. By torturing and experimenting on intelligent creatures, Nathan called out, by poisoning their home to test your theories. As they argued, something extraordinary was happening. Dolphins began gathering around Jenny's boat, more than any of them had ever seen in one place. Their clicks and whistles created an otherworldly symphony. Harold's men noticed too, some of them backing away nervously from the railings of their vessel. The dolphins' behavior was unprecedented, almost as if they understood the confrontation taking place above them. Jenny had been quietly working at the boat's radio during the exchange. Now she looked up, a smile of triumph on her face. "Coast Guard's on their way," she whispered. "And they're not alone. I've been broadcasting everything Harold just said about their experiments." Gregory noticed movement on the shore. Local fishermen, having heard about the confrontation, were gathering on the beach. Many had their phones out, recording everything. Pete was there too, along with other members of the coastal community whose livelihoods depended on healthy waters. Harold must have noticed as well, because his next words carried an edge of desperation. "Last chance," he warned. "Don't make me do something we'll all regret." That's when they heard it, the deep, resonant sound of a whale's call. A massive shape moved beneath the surface, visible thanks to the bioluminescent plankton. The dolphins parted as a humpback whale surfaced between the two boats, its mere presence making Harold's vessel seem small and insignificant. The whale's appearance changed everything. Harold's men began backing away, clearly unnerved by the situation. The dolphins continued their symphony, creating a scene that no one present would ever forget. In the distance, they could hear the approach of Coast Guard vessels. Harold's face contorted with rage as he realized his plans were unraveling. "This isn't the end," he snarled, ordering his boat to retreat. As Harold's vessel disappeared into the darkness, Gregory felt Madeline's arms wrap around him. "You're freezing," she said, but her voice was filled with relief and love. Nathan was examining the scene with academic interest. "The level of coordination between these marine mammals is extraordinary," he mused. "It's almost as if they're working together to protect their home," Jenny finished. "Maybe they always have been. Maybe we're only now learning to notice." Gregory watched as the whale slipped beneath the surface, the dolphins following suit. He thought about Emma's drawings, about the patterns she'd seen. There was still so much they didn't understand about the intelligence that dwelled beneath the waves. The Coast Guard arrived minutes later, along with several news boats. The evidence they had gathered, combined with Harold's recorded confession about the experiments, would be impossible to ignore or cover up. But as Gregory looked out over the now quiet waters, he knew this victory wasn't just theirs. They had been part of something larger, a collaboration between species to protect the ocean that was home to them all. What they didn't know was that their actions that night would have far-reaching consequences. The story of the dolphins' intervention, the whale's appearance, and the community's stand against corporate exploitation would spark a movement that would extend far beyond their small coastal town. Part 6. Ripples of Change. The days following the confrontation at sea brought dramatic changes to the coastal community. News coverage of the event spread rapidly, with Jenny's article leading the way. The image of the whale rising between the boats, surrounded by dolphins, became a powerful symbol of marine life standing against exploitation. Harold and several top executives from coastal developments were arrested based on the evidence Nathan had gathered. During the investigation, authorities discovered the full scope of Project Echo, a classified program that had started with noble intentions of understanding marine mammal communication, but had devolved into dangerous experimentation under corporate greed. Gregory found himself thrust into an unexpected role as a voice for ocean conservation. His story of being saved by a dolphin, combined with the recent events, resonated with people around the world, but he remained humble, always deflecting attention back to the real issues. "I'm just someone who was given a second chance," he would say during interviews. "The real heroes are the creatures we share this planet with, and the people who fight every day to protect them." Madeline focused her energy on working with environmental education programs, helping children understand and appreciate marine life. Emma's drawings became part of a children's book about dolphin communication, with proceeds going to ocean conservation efforts. Nathan's recovery progressed well, and he returned to his research with renewed purpose. This time, though, his approach was different. Instead of just studying marine life, he worked to understand it, collaborating with other scientists who shared his respect for marine intelligence. But not everything was resolved so easily. While Harold faced justice, many of his associates remained free, their connections protecting them from prosecution. The experimental compounds, though no longer being dumped, had left lasting effects on the marine ecosystem that would take years to heal. Part 7, Full Circle. One morning, as Gregory prepared his fishing boat for its first voyage since his accident, he found Emma sitting on the dock, her legs dangling over the water. She was watching a familiar dolphin swimming nearby. "Dad," she said, not turning around, "they're happy now. They say the water feels cleaner." Gregory sat beside his daughter, struck by her simple yet profound statement. Over the past months, Emma's connection with the dolphins had grown stronger. While others might dismiss it as childhood imagination, Gregory knew better. "Do they still show you pictures?" he asked gently. Emma nodded, pulling out her latest drawing. It showed waves of sound moving between dolphins, but this time the patterns were different, more harmonious, less distressed. As if responding to their conversation, the dolphin, the same one that had saved Gregory, leaped from the water, creating a sparkling arc in the morning sun. Other dolphins joined it, putting on an impromptu show that drew amazed gasps from people gathering on the shore. Jenny appeared with her camera, documenting the moment. She had been tracking the recovery of marine life in the area, noting positive changes as the water quality improved. The dolphins' regular appearances near the shore had become a symbol of hope for the community. Nathan, walking with just a slight limp now, joined them on the dock. "The latest test results are encouraging," he reported. "The ecosystem is showing remarkable resilience. And look at this." He held out a tablet showing sonar readings. "Their communication patterns are returning to normal." Madeline arrived last, carrying a newspaper. The headline announced that Coastal Development's remaining assets would be liquidated, with the proceeds going to environmental restoration projects. The company's private research would be made public, ensuring that their discoveries about marine mammal communication would benefit conservation efforts rather than exploitation. "It's really over," Madeline said, sitting beside Gregory and Emma. Gregory watched the dolphins playing in the distance. "No," he said thoughtfully, "it's just beginning. We've been given something precious, an understanding of the intelligence we share our world with. Now we have to prove worthy of that knowledge." As if in response, the dolphins began swimming in a circular pattern, creating a bioluminescent display that reflected the first rays of sunrise. It was beautiful and somehow deliberate, a reminder of the mystery and magic that existed in the natural world. Later that day, as Gregory finally took his boat out to sea again, he felt no fear. The ocean that had nearly claimed his life had also given him a greater purpose. Emma sat beside him, pointing out dolphins swimming alongside their vessel. Madeline stood at the rail, her hair blowing in the wind, while Nathan made notes about the dolphins' behavior. They passed the spot where Gregory had almost drowned, now marked by a small buoy that served as both a warning and a memorial. But instead of dark memories, Gregory felt only gratitude. His near-death experience had opened his eyes to a deeper truth about the interconnectedness of all life. As they turned toward home, the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant colors, Gregory spotted his old friend, the dolphin that had saved him. It leaped high into the air, water streaming from its body like liquid gold in the fading light. Emma laughed in delight. "They're saying goodbye for now," she said confidently. "No," Gregory corrected gently. "They're saying see you soon." The dolphin dove beneath the waves, leaving barely a ripple on the surface, but its presence, like the changes it had helped bring about, would continue to influence their lives in profound ways. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner in their home overlooking the sea, Gregory looked at the faces around him. Madeline, Emma, Nathan, and Jenny had become more than friends. They were fellow guardians of a precious truth about the intelligence and sensitivity of marine life. The sound of dolphins calling carried through the open window, a reminder that they shared their world with remarkable beings capable of compassion, intelligence, and perhaps even wisdom. The ocean had nearly taken Gregory's life, but through that near tragedy, it had given him something far more valuable: a purpose, a mission, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to be part of the intricate web of life that connected all living things. As night fell and stars began to twinkle above the peaceful waves, Gregory knew that while their immediate battle was won, their work would continue. There would always be those who sought to exploit nature for profit, but there would also always be those who stood ready to protect it, both human and dolphin alike. Emma's latest drawing sat on the mantelpiece, a simple yet powerful image of dolphins and humans swimming together in harmony. Below it, she had written in her childish script, "Sometimes the best friends come with fins instead of hands." Gregory smiled, knowing that their story would inspire others to look at the ocean and its inhabitants with new eyes. The miracle that had saved his life had sparked a chain of events that would ripple outward, touching lives and changing perspectives for generations to come. And somewhere out in the darkness, a pod of dolphins swam beneath the stars, their ancient songs carrying messages of hope across the endless waves. The end. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of captivating stories. I trust you found today's narrative as engaging as I did. If you enjoyed this exploration into fascinating and compelling narratives, kindly indicate your appreciation by liking this video. Are you watching on mobile? Show your appreciation with a double tap for hype. For more captivating stories and journeys into the heart of compelling storytelling, please subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss a single upload. Your thoughts and interpretations are most welcome. Please share your perspectives on today's story in the comments below. And if you believe others would find this content engaging, please consider sharing the video with your network. Until our next journey into the world of captivating tales, I bid you farewell.